Hey everyone, it's Dante with Flambeau Outdoors, and I'm here to help walk you through setting up your new Formula bow case. So now that you have the Formula bow case, it's time to get it set up and customize it to fit your bows. So when you head to the field or fly out of state to hunt, you know your bow is not going anywhere. So step one is to remove the accessory pouch how it comes from the factory. Simply open up these gear ties, set this off to the side, and unhook the gear ties from the spines of the sled. So the next step of customizing this case to fit your bow is figuring out the overall length of the bow you will be placing in this case. Not cam to cam, but overall length. This case is designed to fit bows up to 40 inches in overall length with the accessory pouch and 43 inches in overall length without the accessory pouch. For this video, we are going to be setting this case up to fit this bow, which is 33 inches cam to cam, but once again, we are worried about the overall length, which is 38 inches. So for this video, we will be using the accessory pouch and setting this case up to fit this bow. Let's take a look inside and see what all this case comes with. So the first poly bag includes 2 arrow racks and 4 screws to attach the arrow racks to the lid assembly. We'll do that later. The next poly bag has 2 buttons to attach the accessory pouch to the case, and finally a poly bag with a bunch of screws in it to be used once your sleds are in place. You can secure the sleds to the case using these screws. So first step, let's get the accessory pouch placed in the case. Now you can choose left or right just on preference. In this case, we're going to set it up on the left side here. First thing to do is remove these screws from this poly bag. You'll see inside these are 2 button top with male screws that are going to be installed into this screw boss here and this screw boss here. Not these screw bosses in the middle of the case. These are used to secure your sleds in place in the future. So let's go ahead and get these installed. We're going to need a Phillips screwdriver to do such, and simply screw them into the screw boss. Alright, now that the screw bosses are installed, we have our accessory bag here. You will see it is divided on the inside. It is removable. Simply place it inside here, and it is designed to hold stabilizers here on the long end, rangefinders and other accessories such as broadheads, string wax, and etc. Whatever you need to take into the field, this accessory pouch is here to handle it. So to install the accessory pouch, simply take these female buttons here on each side of the case and snap them into the male buttons below. When you do such, you will hear an audible snap, and that's how you know that your case is successfully installed, like such. Now that we have the accessory pouch installed, let's go ahead and move on to adjusting these sleds to fit the bow you will be putting inside the Formula bow case. What makes this case so unique is how customizable it is. These sleds are designed to simply lift out and move throughout the case to fit your bow, and they slide right back into place on the track system throughout the case. So let's go ahead and get this set up to fit this bow. So the sleds are placed where they come from the factory, and obviously that's too close to accept any modern bows. So I found it best thing to do is to kind of take your bow and set it in here and eyeball on where these sleds need to be adjusted to. Every bow make, brand, model, they're all different. So the best thing to do is set your bow in here and figure out what works best for yours. So let's go ahead and do that. Once again, this bow is on the longer side. I mean, it's a 33-inch cam to cam and 38 inches in overall length. So it's going to probably have to move the sleds out just about as much as this case will accept with the accessory pouch, of course. So as you can see, you set it there. You get a good idea of where your limb falls on each side and where the sleds need to be moved to. So now that we eyeballed that, let's go ahead and let's move this sled to the second one in. So we moved it down the track this way. There's still one track system left that we can move this sled over. And let's go ahead and move this sled all the way out as far as we can in this case. So reach over, get that to slide in there. So this sled's at its max. It can't go any further this way. This sled, we still have 2 notches we can move it to fit or accommodate different bows. So let's see how this looks on our bow. So you set this in here and you can see that's pretty good. Your limb's resting completely on this sled, and the limb over here is all the way resting on this sled. The limb pockets are firmly on the middle of the sled, and the outer cam and limb go to the outside portion of the sled. Now, if it was me, I might adjust this sled one more notch, so let's go ahead and do that. So simply just lift up, slide it back into the track system, reach over, line it up, and you're good to go. Now this sled is as far as it can go with the accessory pouch installed. Obviously, if you had that longer bow, you know, above 40 inches, you can remove this accessory pouch, extend this out another slot, and put your bow in it. So let's go ahead and place our bow back in here. And there we go. So now this is firmly placed onto the sleds. The whole limb is resting on each sled, and we're good to go. As you can see, this case allows for everything to be free floating. What I mean by that is there's nothing, no portion of the bow is touching any portion of the case except for the limbs laying on the overmolded, cushioned, shock absorbing portion of these sleds. So there's nothing touching the sight, that's free floating. There's nothing touching the strings, that's free floating. Same with the cams and your cables and everything else. So that's pretty good. Now it's time to take your gear ties and figure out where exactly to place those to anchor this bow down. Once again, visualizing it is the best way to do it. So as you can see here, your riser on this bow falls pretty much dead center of these sleds. So I'm going to count my way in and choose the spine down below on the sled that I think works best to position this bow here. So if you count in 1, 2, 3, 4, it falls between the 4th and 5th. If you go with the 5th, it's going to probably suck the bow more that way, and if you go with the 4th, it might bring it a little more this way. I'm going to go with the 5th because I think that's most dead center on each side of the bow. So let's go ahead and remove the bow and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in. Simply wrap that around the spine like that. Take your other gear tie, count 5 in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and pop that around the spine like that. So now we can take our bow and just see how this lines up. Spread these out a little bit, and there we go. So that's pretty good. That lays pretty darn good over the center of the riser. So let's go ahead and remove this. Now I found it best, the best way to use these gear ties is to give it one secure twist around the sled like that, so that when you return from hunting or shooting your bow, these gear ties are exactly where you want them to be. So now that we have those gear ties in place that we think fits the bow best, you slide the bow in here like such. Get that out of the way of the quiver. Now the bow is firmly placed on the sleds. Everything's still free floating. You got your gear ties in place. Simply twist as as so. And your bow is now secured in place. And so, now that we have it kind of customized to where we need the sleds to be and where we need the gear ties to be in this portion of the case, it's time to remove the bow, screw these sleds in place using the poly bag of screws that we got in the beginning, and then attach the arrow rack and you're ready to go. Now that your sleds are in place and your bow is secured down by the Nite Ize Mega Gear ties, it's time to move on to the final step, which is adding the arrow rack to your lid assembly. You have two different options when choosing where to place your arrow rack in your Formula bow case. There's these two sets of screw bosses up top and then these two below, all of which depends on where the quiver lies attached on your bow. In this example, the quiver is in the rear portion of the case, so we're going to want to avoid placing our arrow rack in the bottom portion of the lid and go ahead and place it up top so it doesn't interfere with your quiver when you shut the lid. So let's go ahead and install the racks. To do such, open the poly bag that we talked about in the beginning. Inside there are two arrow racks and a bag of 4 screws. Simply take the arrow racks, place them on the screw bosses, and then screw them into place using the 4 screws and a Phillips screwdriver. With your arrow rack now installed in the lid assembly, your bow and Formula bow case is ready to be thrown in the bed of a truck, strapped to the back of an ATV or UTV, or flown across the country, ready for your next hunting or archery shooting adventure.